How is your ego getting in the way? And what has to happen for you to overcome that? All right. It's yours truly, Jovie Sumner, coming at you with today's live episode of the Breakthrough Boss, the Daily Recharge Podcast. And I'm truly energized and excited to be doing this. It's been in the works for a while. And, as with all good things, things take time, but it's here now. We are rocking and rolling and we are in motion. And 2024, we're knocking it out of the fucking ballpark. So sit back, relax, and buckle up tight because you are in for the ride of your life. So without any further ado, we're going to jump right into today's topic. So today's topic really is about ego. I've been experiencing some ego from myself. And the funny thing about it is, I remember reading or listening somewhere where Oprah Winfrey said ego is the thing that we see in others and not in ourselves. And I had an interesting experience today, as a matter of fact. I sent my family some stuff from Tony Robbins. And my sister, she loves Reverend Michael, the famed spiritual teacher. He has some great content. And when my sister sent it, immediately, I replied back with something kind of snazzy. I just felt like she was trying to compete with me, to be real. And, I asked my wife's friend for some enlightenment, and he gave me some different perspectives and helped me to realize that, it's important for us to accept our ego. And it took me back to what Oprah Winfrey had said in terms of being able to see ego in others, but not in ourselves. And I thought about what my wife's friend was saying to me, and what he told me to do was something that I think is important for all of us to do, is to learn that ego is a part of who we are. And ego wants to be separate from others, and ego does serve a purpose. However, we have to keep that purpose in alignment and center, or else ego will run out of control. And when I thought about some of the perspectives that my wife's friend shared with me, I realized I could have easily been doing the same thing, and someone could have seen, my comment or what I might have to say as being egotistical as well. So, I wanted to talk about that, ego, what is it, and how do we keep it in check? We've heard of people being egomaniacs. They're out of control. We hear so many damaging and negative things about the ego. However, I want to look at it from multiple perspectives. And one of the most profound books I think I've read about ego is Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now. And he talks about ego, and he talks about how we stay present in the mind. And I remember him saying that ego is always striving to defend itself, and it's always striving to separate, individuality. And so one of the things I've become more conscious of doing is, how can I bring ego into oneness with others? And how can I see ego as not necessarily a negative or a positive, but just as my wife's friend suggested to me, just another part of who I am. To me, that is what it actually takes in order to really get to the place where we are aware of ego and we know how to embrace ego. And we'll get a little boom on that one. Just wanted to do that anyway. But we have to realize that this is a part of who we are, and we do have to embrace it. And at the same time, we have to become observant of when it's at play, because I do think it's easy to see it in others and not in ourselves. And it definitely serves a purpose. It serves a purpose. And we don't want to lose connection with that, because part of that is for it to protect us, for it to help us, for it to enlighten us, and help us to do the things that are necessary. And I think the other part of it sometimes is just as my wife's friend was suggesting to me today and sharing with me today, is that there are also times when we're tired and when we're not at our best. And we have to realize when ego will crop up then, or when it will pop its head up then, because those are the times when, you may be on the job, or you may say, and somebody says something to you, you snap back, or just like I did today, you act without thinking. And we have to give ourselves permission to be imperfect, I think. And at the same time, we have to also give that same allowance and permission to others to be imperfect, because none of us are perfect. We're all doing the best we can. And I think that the more conscious we become of ego and when it's at play, and when we're also maybe not at our best, because I think a lot of times that's actually when ego tends to get the best of us, is when we're not at our best, And so with that being said, for me, it's about the consciousness. Are you able to observe why you're behaving or feeling or thinking the way that you're able to behave, the way that you're thinking or the way that you're behaving, or feeling, tapping into how am I feeling right now? What's going on within me? Why am I feeling this way? It was one of the questions my wife's friend asked me today. Where's this coming from? I think is another great question. And also being able to come back into a present moment, as Eckhart Tolle talks about in his book, The Power of Now, coming back into a place of present momentness, because oftentimes it's the mind that's running when we're not in those best spaces. And when we're not in the best space, what ends up happening is we do things we're not proud of, and we end up feeling and we end up having to go back and apologize, ask for forgiveness, and then we have to forgive ourselves, and then we have to take the time to figure out what was really going on in that moment with me. What happened? Why did I allow myself to act this way, act out of control, or lose control? Or, this is really, really an important space for us to raise our consciousness and for us to become masters of. And I love what my wife's friend said to me today. He said to me, we have to embrace it. And I said, and when we were talking, he said, you're speaking about ego as if it's separate from you and not a part of who you are. And when he said that, I was really, really, really like, whoa, this is why I talk to this guy sometimes, because he was absolutely right. A lot of times we don't want to accept that ego is a part of who we are. We use it almost in a second and third party commentary of is someone else. This person is a super ego. They have a super ego. They ego maniac. It's out there. It's the other. It's in someone else, but not in me. And I love what he was saying to me today, is that we have to embrace the ego within us. Ooh, that was good. That was good. Maybe he should write a book, However, let's just really briefly discuss a few things that can be done for us to keep ego in check. And I want to start with what he said first. I think first we have to all acknowledge that we all have an ego. And not only do we all have an ego, we all want to accept that we have an ego. Not to do so is denial. And I think will allow ego to get the best of us, because what will ultimately happen is when ego feels like it's not a part of us in an integrated manner, is the way we accept all of the wonderful parts of us, and then the parts that we want to be a part of us, the ego will do something or say something, and then we feel the self-sabotage because we didn't give it attention, we didn't embrace it, we didn't integrate it, we made it feel like it was the stepchild instead of oneness and wholeness with us. And I think that's the next thing. I think the second thing is we have to unify it into who we are by acknowledging and by accepting it. So if we acknowledge it and we accept it, we say, I'm a whole individual, and this also is a part of who I am. This is not the stepchild. This is not the other. This is not someone else's part, or this is not just others who have that. I also have an ego as well. And I think doing that, it brings us into a place of surrendering, where now we feel more empowered, because we're not denying who we are. We're not denying another part of us. as my life coach, Carolyn Rim often talks about, is the key is to not resist these parts of ourselves, because the more we resist them, the more they are going to misbehave, or they're going to do things to get our attention. We have to acknowledge them. We have to give them their just due too, almost as if like when you do something and you successfully accomplish what you want, or when you do something to get accolades or positive attention or even negative attention, whatever it may be, you give yourself praise, you celebrate yourself. Well, the deal is, we have to do the same thing with ego. We have to acknowledge it and say, hey, you know what? I want to say thank you for taking care of those responsibilities. Thank you for paying those bills on time. Thank you for working your ass off to get that new certification, or, to get that promotion at work, or to spend time with your family. We have to acknowledge the ego, because when we don't, and the ego goes too long and it feels that it has been denied, it has been ignored, it has been avoided, it will show up and it will remind us that, hey, I too am a part of who you are. And there's nothing wrong with ego. It's the unchecked ego that we have so many different stories and frames around in our society. So to me, those are just a few things that we can do. Something else that came out of the conversation that my wife's friend, his name's Andre, and I had, is that I think too, when we're not at our best, because he brought up a very valid point about that. When we're not at our best, then a lot of times ego can get the best of us if we don't observe, hey, this is an ego moment for me. I had an ego moment last night. I was at work and I switched into a different mode. I got tired at the end of the shift I was working in. I noticed my entire mood changed. And as soon as I did, I checked myself and my ego versus projecting. And sometimes it's so easy to project onto other people. And as Andre said to me today, we have to realize we're those other people. We have the same moments where we're tired, we're hangry, we don't feel like being bothered. We're just not at our best selves. And when we do that, and we can extend that same empathy and tolerance to others, that same patience that, to others as well as ourselves, I think that this creates a space of being observant. And when you become observant from that standpoint, what happens is that you're no longer just a passive rider with ego. Now you are an active co-creator with ego, and you can make an active, enlightened choice. And that enlightened choice can be, I choose to do this, or I choose to not do this. I choose to be aware of what's going on and where I'm at from a mental, physical, spiritual, or even physical space right now. I think that's deeply empowering. And I think it's deeply empowering because you now are an enlightened warrior. You now are an enlightened being. You're no longer in the dark about how you're showing up and what you're putting out into the universe. And so often, I know for myself, it's been so many times where I thought it was someone else. I thought it was this person. I thought it was this person, or another person, or that person. And then it came to when my emotions were not involved in it. My feelings were not involved in it. I played a role in it as well. Whoa. And if you want to talk about a humbling experience, is when you come into acknowledgement that you played an active role in whatever you co-created in your life as well. Nothing more enlightening than that. So those are just a few things I think we all can do to learn about our ego, to accept our ego, and to manage our ego as well as embrace it as well. If you get a chance, I highly recommend you read some of Eckhart Tolle's work, visit his website. To me, he's probably one of the most brilliant people when it comes to the topic of ego and mind and those types of things. And I have several of his books, and I may revisit reading them. It's been several years since I've read them, but they were deeply enlightening. And I think that he said something I will never forget. He said, we are human beings. We're not human doings. And I think the life we live in this society we live is such a fast-paced society. Even post-COVID is still a very fast-paced society. It was even faster before COVID. So imagine how much we were on the go then. But he said, we have to remember, we don't always have to be doing. We're human beings. We're meant to be, not just do. And he talked about if you can sometimes just come into a quiet, centered place and just observe your mind, the thoughts, without judgment. Don't look at it as positive or negative, whatever it's saying, and just allow it to be. And after a while, you will notice that it will come back into a place of centeredness and a place of stillness and wholeness. And to me, this is the essence of ego at its best. That's all I got for you guys today. I want to thank everybody for tuning in to today's first official episode of the Breakthrough Boss podcast, the Daily Recharge. It's truly, truly an honor for you all to be here with me and for me to be able to share some of the value that I have and what it is that I have for my listeners and my audience. And I look forward to serving you and adding even more value to you and the people who you love and care about in the upcoming days, weeks, months, and years to come. Thank you guys so much. Sending you love, sending you light, much prosperity, success, and abundance. That's all I got. Over and out. God bless, guys.